Hello there, and welcome. You have clicked on this video because you too are interested in probably one of the most popular MBTI questions, which is, what type is the best for your type? And if you clicked on this, you likely are one of the two types, INFJ or ENFP. And so I wanted to give a little of my personal insight into the subject, break down some of the reasons why people say it's really good, and talk to you about my personal experience in those kind of relationships, both just friendships and relationships, and help you better understand what it's like for ENFPs and INFJs to be buddies or partners. Let's go ahead and talk about this. Let's go ahead and dive right on into this. First things first is you'll want to look at the letters themselves. If you're new to MBTI, that means that you know the letters, okay? So there's ENFP and INFJ, so what? Okay, well, the ENFP and the INFJ share two very fundamentally important functions, and that is the middle two. That is the N and the F, which means, more often than not, we have a very similar value system. Not the same, but very similar. You're going to find that a lot of NFs have similar moral values, have similar ideals about humanity, etc. And because of that, NFs do very well with other NFs in friendships or in relationships because we found our kindred spirits. Now, INFJs and ENFPs are opposite in two very important fields: introversion and extroversion, and judging and perceiving. And so what can really be beneficial about this is the ENFP will bring the INFJ out of their rigid shell, and the INFJ will bring a little law and order, so to speak, to the ENFP. And so therefore they will balance each other. They have similar values, but one will push the other outside of their comfort zone, and one will push the other into a little box of safety and comfort. So, on that realm, on just the letters alone, you can see why people think that there's a lot of just natural synergy just with the lettering system alone. If you delve in further into MBTI and you start learning about socionics and cognitive functions, you're going to start learning a little bit more about why these two types seemingly go together so well. So let's break it down into the function stack. The ENFPs are extroverted intuition, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, and introverted sensing. And the INFJs on the other side are introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, and extroverted sensing, i.e., they are mirrors of each other. If you took a mirror against one of these people, an ENFP or an INFJ, you're going to see the exact opposite functions in the same order, meaning every function that's introverted for one is going to be extroverted for the other, and vice versa. And what this creates is an ebb and flow. If you think about socionics, they're going to kind of consume one another. The extroverted functions are going to consume the introverted functions, and the introverted functions are going to bring law and order to the extroverted functions. It's a natural flow of cognitive functions if you believe in the socionics aspect of myers-briggs and of personality. So, INFJs and ENFPs are so very similar and yet so very different, they can really balance each other out. I have personally found many times that I am instantly drawn to INFJs. I've had a lot of INFJ friends growing up, and I've even dated and am still dating an INFJ. So, what's actually going on in an INFJ and ENFP relationship, friendship or otherwise? Well, the ENFP is full of bubbliness, full of idealism, right? The ENFP, whether depressed or not, is going to be very optimistic and idealistic about the world. The INFJ, on the other hand, is more often than not going to be a little jaded, going to be a little bit less likely to be happy about the world and the state that it is. The INFJ tends to see the negative state of the world, the ENFP tends to see the positive side. And so the ENFP brings optimism and excitement to the INFJ, and the INFJ brings reality crashing down in on the ENFP. This actually can be a cause of a lot of arguments. I have had a lot of philosophical and otherwise arguments with INFJs where I'm like, well, this is what could be, and they're like, well, this is what is. And you might think that an ST person would be the kind of person saying, this is what is, and being very, Debbie Downer. But actually, INFJs can be quite negative and angry, especially when everything in their life has told them to be negative and angry. Not to say that they're not part of the idealists. They do really want the world to be better. They do really want to fix humanity. However, they see it as this near impossible task and kind of think it unrealistic to think that they're ever going to fix anything. So you'll often find with INFJs, they'll pick one thing and they'll go after that, and they won't really worry about too much beyond that. For example, my mom is an INFJ, and she has chosen nursing as her path, and she is very passionate about hospice nursing specifically, and she will do everything she can to help the hospice nursing in America, and potentially greater than that, but she's thinking just about America, be better, be more holistic, etc., etc. Whereas an ENFP on the opposite spectrum would probably want to fix, if they became a nurse and decided to focus exclusively on nursing, which is very rare, but if they decided to focus exclusively on nursing, they would want to fix the entire nursing system. They would want to fix everything about the nursing system. And that can be another cause for argument, because the INFJ says, narrow yourself down, woman, and the ENFP says, expand your horizons, man. So when it comes to dating specifically, you're going to find a lot of initial inertia in the relationship. The ENFP finds somebody who actually wants to listen to them and all their crazy ideas, and actually understands them and sees them as more than just an idea person. The INFJ, on the other hand, finds somebody that they can be honest with and not have to use so much of that dealing with people kind of interface. They don't need to use that interface as much with an ENFP because the ENFP doesn't need it. The ENFP is genuinely interested. And so you're going to find a lot of mutual respect and a lot of synergy, especially early on when an INFJ and an ENFP meet. That is a very electric kind of relationship. It's very, very positive in the beginning. So then what happens over time, however, is hot things tend to die out, right? You build a giant bonfire, and unless you keep throwing wood into the bonfire, it's eventually going to turn into a pile of embers at the end of the night. Doesn't matter how big your fire is when it starts, at the end of the night, it's going to die down, unless you have something to continually feed it. And that is just like the relationship between an ENFP and an INFJ. The ENFP needs space. They need room to grow, but they also need somebody who will listen to their ideas and will work with them to develop their ideas, right? The INFJ has limited space for that kind of thinking. In the beginning, they're excited by this. They love the fact that the ENFP has so many ideas. They want to feed into that. But an INFJ is going to grow tired of that. The INFJ is going to say, can't you just stick with something and follow through with it all the way and just complete something that you start? And the ENFP is going to have trouble with that. So this is where a lot of potential for self-growth comes for both parties. The INFJ can learn to be a little bit more accepting of somebody who's more malleable, of somebody who's more likely to change. And the ENFP can be around somebody who wants completion to things, who wants things to see a beginning through to the end and have the satisfaction of finishing something. The ENFP can bring out and spark the excitement for life that an INFJ needs, and the INFJ can say, okay, we're excited, now what do we do with that excitement? Where do we go with this? How do we get a resolution or get a final solution for example, with my boyfriend and I, when we first met, ooh boy, was it sparks all the time. We were feeling really great around each other. There were some things I did that annoyed him. He did some things that annoyed me. I mean, it happens. That happens with any two people, though. It doesn't matter of the type. But a few months into our relationship, we moved in together. Things were going really well. We were really helping each other out. We decided to move across the country. We moved all over. We lived in many different places, and that's one thing where we can both have excitement for the new, but also have follow-through. So we moved to a new place, which is the ENFP saying, I need something different. And the INFJ is like, cool, let's do it, let's explore. And then together, they find a long-term solution in that place. They follow through, they get everything set up, and then you can do it again. And so my boyfriend and I kind of have this thing where we move every year or every 2 years, whatever. We move around to keep that kind of excitement for life around, but while also still being able to accomplish long-term goals and things like that. Fights, though, do happen. They're going to happen with anyone. But what I've noticed with INFJs, my boyfriend or otherwise, one of the biggest things that we're going to fight about is how we look at the world and how we understand things. So if you think about the cognitive functions, INFJs have TI, okay? And TI is a logic system that is internally guided. They trust their own logic systems, and they don't really trust the logic systems of other people until they've really thought about it, worked it into their own system, and found what works for them. ENFPs, however, work the exact opposite, and they tend to have, combined with their TE and their NE, which means new ideas, new possibilities, they are constantly coming up with ideas that seem to spark out of nowhere and make no sense. And the INFJ says, how did you come to that idea? Where did you come up with this idea? Why did you come up with this idea? And the ENFP says, I don't know, it seemed like a good idea. And the ENFP will then struggle to come up with a reasoning behind why they came up with that idea when there isn't one. There's not one. Let me just tell you, there's not a reasoning behind it. They just came up with some idea. They could, over time, break it down and figure out how they got to that conclusion, but it doesn't work that way. Normally, they come up with an idea and there it is. And oppositely, ENFPs can get mad at INFJs because INFJs have limited capacity to find these multiple possibilities. Because they have introverted intuition first, that means they're constantly looking at the long term for anything. So when something happens, say you leave something in the sink, okay, a dish, okay, let's just be arbitrary, you leave a dish in the sink, okay, the INFJ is going to see how it's only going to get worse. You're going to put more dishes in the sink, leave them there, not clean them, it's going to get worse, and in the end, the INFJ is going to be the one that has to clean it. This could be a day thing, this could be a few months kind of thing. This is how the INFJ brain will work. They see a problem and they see how it's going to escalate, okay? The ENFP says, I put that there once, it was a one-time thing, and I'm going to clean it. The INFJ says, you've done it a couple times before now, and it's getting worse. You know, they're getting closer together. And the ENFP says, cut me some slack. And it can be things like that. And I know I use dish, it's an arbitrary, it's a small thing, but that kind of stuff is going to happen a lot. And that's why it's really good for self-growth. The ENFP becomes more conscientious and the INFJ becomes a little less rigid and controlling. But if you're not willing to work on these things, if you're only going to find anger and resentment in these kind of things, if you're not willing to grow and develop yourself and learn from these situations as they come on, and I'm talking about both parties here, that's going to cause a lot of issues. So do I think INFJs and ENFPs can be great for relationships? Absolutely. I love INFJs to death. They are probably my favorite personality type. No shade to anybody else. I just really love INFJs. Can't help it. I've had a ton of INFJ friends. I tend to draw them to me for the quote-unquote most rare type. I tend to know more INFJs than any other personality type, but that's besides the point. I think that they can make really great relationships. I think they can make really great friendships. But both parties need to agree to be honest and to grow. And I think that's the same for any relationship. This is just general relationship. But you can't just say INFJs and ENFPs are great together. Look, they have opposite functions. Look, they have the same values but different letters. They're going to be perfect for each other. Yes and no. Those kind of things can be true. But also, take it with a grain of salt because every person is different and every situation is different. And if you're not willing to put in the work, it's not going to work. So I'm done being Mama Michelle. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that this has brought some level of insight to you as to the benefit of an INFJ and ENFP relationship, and also the things that you need to look out for, the potential downfalls to the relationship. And I hope that you have a beautiful, amazing, wonderful, fantastic day. Bye.